the buzzword is Qatar Airways flying into India, 100% FDI for foreign carriers. Is that on the cards? The Federation of FIA has been opposing that vehemently. Where do things stand now as far as the change in the FDI norms are concerned?
Well, we've read the media reports about Qatar's strategy, and I have met with the QIA as well as the Qatar Airways people, and they've expressed a great deal of interest in setting up a domestic airline in India, and we welcome that. As far as our FDI regime is concerned in aviation, it's among the most open in the world, as FITEC knows, because obviously Vistara is 49% owned by Singapore International Airlines Group. So we have a very open and liberal FDI policy. And with respect to FDI, the policy is that 49% can be owned by a foreign carrier. 51% has to be owned by FIIs. So in that sense, you can have a 100% foreign-owned carrier. I'd like to remind you that many of our banks are 74-75% owned by foreign institutions as well. So across our economy, in sector after sector, we've really liberalized the FDI regime, really made sure that our economy is an open, market-driven economy, and we've gone through and done that in aviation also. So we welcome investment from Qatar or from anyone else, like, for example, from Singapore as well.
But is there a change coming, sir? Are you going to allow foreign carriers to go beyond the 49% cap?
The FDI policy is very clear. It's 49% is the cap for a carrier, 51% FIIs.
Okay, so that stays.
That is the FDI policy.
Okay. So, Mr. Sinha, if I could now turn and ask you about what is the white elephant in the room, Air India. What is the plan now as far as Air India is concerned? I know that we've spoken about this in the past. Your minister has also said that you cannot continue to fund Air India in perpetuity. What do you intend to do, sir, to either turn things around, potentially look at strategic disinvestment? What is the plan for Air India?
Well, I think of it as the Maharaja in the room, not the white elephant. So I have a different point of view. No, we have a robust transformation. Thank you. We have a robust transformation plan for Air India. I hope you've flown Air India recently and you've already started to see the changes. For a long time, unfortunately, Air India was not given the support and the autonomy that it really required to compete against formidable competitors, worthy competitors like Vistara and Jet and Indigo and SpiceJet and all the others. So, number one is we have to give them the support that they need to be able to compete. They have not been able to hire for a long time. They've had a lot of trouble, being able to get new planes. So we have to fix all those. Number two, we have to make sure that they have a winning strategy. And we clearly can see what a winning strategy for Air India can be, and which is to be a great global airline like a British Airways or a Lufthansa or a Qantas. It's very obvious that it's going to be very difficult for them to compete purely as a low-cost carrier domestically. Their big advantage is that they have 50 wide-body aircraft right now. They have very valuable landing slots around the world, in London, in New York, in Shanghai, in Hong Kong, in Tokyo. They have the ground infrastructure, the crews, the pilots that can operate these 50 wide-body aircraft. That it'll take, and Vistara, of course, should compete. Jet Airways is competing. It'll take them decades to be able to build up that very difficult to acquire assets like landing slots, like wide-body aircraft, like pilots, etc. So there is a very clear winning strategy for Air India. So that's point number two. So point number three is management and governance, which we are working on. Number four, of course, is to make sure that the product itself improves. We have, better aircraft, we have better food, better in-flight entertainment. So we're working on all that. So it's a fairly robust, comprehensive transformation plan, and we're determined to execute that and make sure that Air India is a very, very competitive carrier.
That's something very interesting that you just said, Mr. Sinha. Let me pick up on the first point that you put down there as part of the transformation of Air India. So am I right to then assume that the focus is going to shift away from the domestic market, more towards international? Because it's probably going to eventually be the more profitable space for Air India. Are you going to reposition Air India then?
No, that's not right, Shireen. And I think FITEC was hinting at that himself when he was talking about their strategy. to be a great international carrier, you have to have a very strong domestic network to feed your international traffic. So you have to build, an appropriate domestic network. You have to build the global hub, the terminal where you can have a great transfer experience. Think of Terminal 5 in Heathrow, think about Changi, think about Dubai. All of these airports give you a fabulous, seamless, convenient transfer experience. Trust me, I've got millions of miles flying around the world, so I know exactly what that experience feels like. So we have to provide that very seamless, very comfortable transfer experience. And we have to have the international network also. So they are all vital elements of an overall business system, value chain that you have to deliver if you want to be a great global airline.
You were talking about the change in culture, bringing in more accountability, better governance, etc. One way of being able to do that is to try and look at the possibility of getting some of these public sector undertakings to be listed. That's the strategy that the Railway Ministry, for instance, is following. The budget has already said that 3 railway PSUs are going to be listed. In fact, I understand that a plan is being worked on to list 5. What about your ministry, sir?
No, I completely agree with you, Shireen. I mean, if you look at what we did in finance, we said, for instance, that we would list the insurance companies, GIC and so on. And so we really knew India. So we've gone ahead and we've done that as far as insurance is concerned. And as far as Air India is concerned, absolutely, that's a great way of improving governance, improving accountability and transparency.
Airports Authority of India. One of the budget proposals was that the Airports Authority Act would be amended to ensure that there is monetization of land held by the Airports Authority of India. Where do things stand and what can we expect in terms of unlocking of value there?
We are moving forward on that, Shireen, and we have to amend the AAI Act. So we will be amending the AAI Act. It obviously has to be brought to Parliament and then the legislation has to be passed. But I think everybody will agree that that is something that is very required because currently the AAI Act is somewhat restrictive in terms of how we can use the land around the airports. And AAI also is one of the largest landowners in the country. We have a tremendous amount of land in many, many important cities around India. And we really want to be able to use that land for the best possible purpose for those cities. So whether it is a convention center, hotel,
affordable housing,
residential housing, whatever the purpose is that is best for that community, best for that location, we want to be able to unlock that value and make that land available for the people of India.
So do you believe the legislative part of this will be done as early as the next session or will it take longer?
We'll try and get it done as soon as possible, which could be depending on exactly what we hear back from the Law Ministry and then the Parliamentary Affairs Ministry in terms of the legislative calendar. And the quality of the law and whether we want to take it to committee or not take it to committee. There are a number of steps that you have to go through if you want to get legislation passed. So we'll have to see how all that unfolds.
Okay, Mr. Sinha, I'm going to give you the last 30 seconds. PTEC was talking about the hope of being able to use mobile boarding passes and so on and so forth. Leave us with a very quick glimpse of what next for 2017.
So we are working on a very exciting initiative, Digi Yatra, which is exactly as PTEC is saying, which is can you have appropriate identification associated with your PNR, and with that appropriate identification, whether it's through your Aadhaar number, your passport or whatever, you are securely identified. As a result of that, you don't need any paper in the system. You just swipe your fingerprints or whatever other identification you have. You get a boarding pass digitally, and then from when you get out of your home, you get onto a taxi service, etc., right to your office or wherever your destination is. The whole experience is completely digital. Your payment is digital, your boarding and security interactions are digital. Everything is totally digital. That's the Digi Yatra concept we're working on right now. We have a working group that's established and we're very hopeful we'll start rolling out some of this over the next few months.
Well, that's the perfect note to end this conversation on. Jayant Sinha, PTEC, many, many thanks for joining us here and taking us through what the plans are for India's civil aviation sector. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.